Hello, everyone. Again, I have Mitali with me today. This is
Hi,
100.
everyone.
Yeah, this is 100th edition of DogSpot Lives, and as I was just telling Mitali, we started just to help people during the lockdown, and then it became more like a daily thing. We have done a lot of different types of lives, covering from health, nutrition, training, animal communication, and we feel that we have a lot to cover. We will keep doing this on regular basis. We have been doing it only by invitation till now. Now we are opening up it for people. People can now nominate other people, or they can nominate themselves also. So there is a form. We will be sharing in the comments the link to the form. In case you know somebody who would like to come, or you would like that person to come on DocSpot Live, please fill in the nomination form. In case you think we should have you on our DocSpot Live, then please nominate yourself. And that is how you can actually help us create more information value for pet owners and the whole community bit. We have been covering businesses as well as health from the health side, veterinarians. If you know any other expert, you know any veterinarian, you know any business, or you know any trainer or anything which we have not yet covered, please feel free to fill in the form and we'll get in touch with you. Here we have Mitali, and Mitali would like to first of all welcome you to India. We have
Oh,
so tell us a little bit about what you were doing in US, and how has been the journey in recent past.
uh, so I actually have been, oh, Pantu clearly wants to get up and go somewhere. But I've actually been in the dog training world, the dog training industry, for the past 8 years. And I actually decided that I feel like about 2 years ago, I personally went through a little bit of I would say like a block, mental and like a block in terms of professionally, where I just felt that, I wanted to know more. I wanted to learn more about this amazing world of dogs that is out there and wanted to get to know, just expand my horizon, expand my knowledge of just training and dog training and dogs. And I think one of the things that just kind of pushed me was definitely, why don't I look at going to another country and learning more? Because of course we do know, and I think the industry in India is just growing day by day. But at the same time, there is, so much more that needs to happen in India specifically. And that's why I decided that, I'm going to go to the US and do a course on advanced dog training and behavior. It was a fabulous experience. I left India in November actually, and I was supposed to be back in April, but thanks to COVID, I was there until now. I just got back last week, and now I'm back. I'm excited to actually put all of my knowledge to use. But I think luckily, like COVID, I think this whole lockdown and this pandemic has taught all of us so many things in weird ways. But I think one of the things that I got was good opportunities, even while I was stuck there due to my situation. But I got to work with a board and train center while I was there. I also got to join, working dog club. So there was a lot of things that I did while I was there, and it was an amazing, fabulous experience.
Uh-huh, great. And so everyone, when we started talking to Mitali, and I asked that, what is the topic? I'm sorry, what is the topic you would like to cover in this live? She said that I would like to speak about how dogs learn, and then uh, so I would like to ask Mitali the first thing, that why this topic, and then probably we can jump into the topic.
Honestly, the one thing I want to say is I deal with so many dogs, right, on a regular basis, right from just basic obedience to, lots of behavioral issues to aggression to toilet training to so many. It's such a vast topic, and I think dog training and dog behavior in general is such a big, broad subject. But I think whenever I sit down with my clients and I sit to talk to them about whatever they are, whatever the problem is and whatever they need me to help them with. I always find myself explaining or sitting down with them and explaining like a few key points before I even go dive into that particular issue that they want me to help them with. And I always find that whenever I go through those, there's just those basic 4 or 5 things that I tell my pet parents that, okay, let's go over this first and then we'll dive into this. And a lot of times, I would say 99% of times, most of my clients have that like light bulb moment as soon as that happens where they're like, oh, okay, now I know already, like even before I have to explain anything further about that specific issue, they already have like, they kind of know why they're having that particular problem. So I actually wanted to speak about that first, is because a lot of people I know do have certain things that they want help with and they want a behavior sort of trainer to help them with. But if you just understand these basics, I do feel it'll help you a lot in understanding and communicating better and having a much better, healthier, stronger relationship with your own dog.
Yeah, great. Yeah, that's a great point. And the way you said that now I know, I think that moment will keep coming again and again, because that is how we summarize life. That we keep learning, and every day we learn something new, and then we say to ourselves, okay, now I know. And sometimes I actually summarize life like that. That we start our day and we learn, and then we say, now I know something new. And I think that's what happens with dog trainers. Almost every day you getting challenged by new dogs, and and then you learn, and then you try to fix the problem, right? So
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. I think the dog world and the dog psychology is always evolving. Like what we know about dogs is constantly evolving. So there can never be a time that you can say, I know everything, or this is a certain way that you've got to train this dog, or this is a certain way you've got to work with this dog. It's always evolving and changing. But
yeah.
yeah.
So, we have a lot of comments coming in. I will just quickly say hello, Sharmila. She's part of my team here at DogSpot. Saloni, hello. And so I'm also very thankful to all the team at DogSpot. They have been working almost 24/7 to make DogSpot Live successful. We have Shweta Malapur saying hello to you and me.
Hi everyone. Hi, Meera's here. Preeti's here. Hi, Meera. Hi,
Yeah,
Preeti. Excited to
yeah.
have you. Uh, that's
Yeah,
so cute. Oh,
Karan.
hi,
Hello, Karan.
Devashri.
Yeah. So let's get into the topic. We will. I will. Should I, put the slides out, Mitali?
Sure. I think just the first slide, so I can talk a little bit about it and discuss. Since dogs actually, first and foremost, so dogs learn in pictures. And one of the things that I actually want you guys to remember today is, of course, hopefully this picture and this slide. So these are the first four, I think, out of everything, these are the first four things that I focus on a lot with my clients and for them to understand. So number one is, of course, the 1.3 second rule. Then there is word plus action. Then there's reinforcement, and there's consistency. I'm going to dive into each and every subtopic that I've listed here so that we kind of get a better idea, and you guys can get a better idea of exactly what each topic means. So I think we can move on to the next slide,
Yeah. Before
wherein
we
I
do
talk
that, there is
about, yeah,
a very
yeah,
important question before we move to the next slide. Radhika is
yeah.
asking, how is Norman, and so am I. So I am also asking the same question. I
Uh,
always wanted to ask, and somehow it slipped from my mind. Yeah.
Radhika Norman is doing great. And oh, Musrat is also saying, sorry, Musrat, hi. I did not miss out on anyone's hellos, but Norman's doing great. I think he's settled in beautifully. I do think that just personally, I've always felt that he was a dog that would get over attached, and he is over attached to his mom already. And I saw it the last time he came to meet me, but he's doing fabulous. Like, I think that dog's transformation, and I think I was truly lucky to be a part of his transformation and his life. And he taught me so much, and just, it was incredible.
Cool. So hi Preeti, hi Saqib, hi Mira. We are not missing out, but we will move on with the slides
So
so that we can cover some subjects. Yeah.
yes. So the first and foremost thing I think I want everyone to know here is dogs have a 1.3-second associative memory. What I mean by that is they can link a particular job or a particular behavior that they've done to the consequence of that particular behavior for only 1.3 seconds. So I'm just going to explain this slide here, for example, is the funny thing is actually I just I made the mess. She did not make the mess at all. And you, as you can see, she has not done anything wrong. But I put out the toys. I came in. I just looked at her with a strong body language, and as you can see, she's clearly giving me a lot of calming signals from her body language. Now, I wanted to actually explain something with you, and I also love giving a lot of examples to put things into perspective. But one of the things that to give you an example, a simple thing would be if I had a puppy in my room right now and I walked out of my room for about 2 to 5 minutes and I walked back and I find a puddle of pee in my room right now, I can yell at the puppy, scream at the puppy, hit the puppy, but the puppy has no recollection or reconnection as to why I am behaving the way I am. So it's extremely important for you to remember that unless you catch your dog in the act, now it could be something good or it could be something wrong that the dog is doing. It's really, really important for you to act within 1.3 seconds or when your dog is performing that particular action. Now, I have lots and lots of clients or first time clients who come to me for a consultation and come to me and say, oh no, my dog knows, my dog has the guilty look on his face and I know what he knows what he's done and he's feeling bad about it. More often than not, this is exactly what is happening, is the dog is not reacting or the dog does not actually know that you're shouting at him or her for doing what they did, be it like chewing up furniture, being peeing in the wrong spot, being whatever. It's mainly reacting or giving you calming signals or giving you the guilty look because you are behaving a certain way. And clearly that brings me to my next slide, which is where she's probably just thinking that exactly there, like, I have no idea why mom is angry at me, but let me try and calm her down with like giving her all of these like calming signals. And that's exactly what it is. In fact, a really fun study, which I love giving the example of, is when there was a multi-dog household, and the owner used to come home every day, and of course, as puppies, I'm sure these dogs would make a mess, and you tear their furniture, sofa cushions, whatever. And the owner would come home. He would find that one of the three dogs looked guilty, and would shout at the dog, because clearly the dog that looked guilty is the one that is clearly has made the mistake, and that's why he's looking guilty. And once they actually got a trainer in, and they said, you know what, the trainer actually knew about the 1.3-second rule and wanted to find out a little bit more. So they actually put cameras in the house, and that's when they realized that dog actually wasn't the one that was making the mess at all. But the association that the dog had made was not that when I make a mess in the house, I get yelled at, but when there is a mess in the house, or when there is pee on the floor, or when there is this particular thing, that's when we all get yelled at. So you always have to be careful of the associations that your dog is making, rather than um, being like actually catching the dog in the act. And that's something you need to focus on rather than shouting at your dog after. This is also why crate training is such a big part of helping you through this process, because when you are not focused on like when so generally my general rule, especially for puppies when they're learning habits, is that when the dog is unattended or unsupervised, the dog goes in the crate. That way I can make sure that I'm not missing out on the 1.3-second window when my dog is doing something wrong. So that's something that's really, really important to remember, is whenever your dog does something right, you have to tell your dog within 1.3 seconds, good job, good boy, good doggy, so that the dog makes the connection that, oh, this is what mom is saying, good job or good dog to me for, versus, you know, you yelling at. Same thing with with if your dog does something wrong. So always important to remember the 1.3-second rule, and it's really going to put things like clear communication for you and your dog. My next point is definitely, can we move back onto, yeah, okay. So my next point is definitely, word plus action. So I think Sorry, Rana, can you go on to me? So then I will get to the slide in a bit. Got you. So one of the things I
Which one?
actually want you
Which
guys
one?
to remember, just onto me, just like get onto me,
Oh, okay. Oh,
just
sorry.
me.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so one of the things I think it's important to remember, which is another thing I tell a lot of my clients, is point number two, which is how do dogs learn words? Now, we as human beings communicate verbally, which is using languages. So I can speak to you guys in English, Marathi, Hindi, whatever, the language that is preferred and all of us understand. But for dogs, dogs do not understand English, Hindi, Marathi. At the same time, we as human beings love to put human attributes onto dogs, and we love having, we believe that my dog understands. And again, I have been guilty of this as well, wherein, I'm like, oh no, she knows what I'm saying, or she understands what I'm trying to say. And it's important to understand that sadly she doesn't. She actually understands, and dogs are very physical animals, so they understand each other or communicate via their body language and by their body postures, and that's how they communicate with one another, and which is why there is a big communication gap between us human beings and between dogs, and that causes a lot of issues in the middle. So the one thing that I want all of y'all to remember today is how do dogs actually learn words, and what do words mean to them, and how you can actually focus on teaching your dog a particular word. So the first thing I want you to remember is whenever, especially when you're starting with a puppy and when you're teaching a new dog something, including Norman. Norman was 4 years old when I started teaching him and had clearly no prior training at all, and he probably knew a whole set of other things and other words in the beginning before he came to me. So the one thing that I had to focus on is whenever I say a word out of my mouth to my dog, I will always make sure that I attach the meaning of the word to it. To give you a simple example is whenever I say, a simple thing like sit, the first thing I will do is I will actually make sure that my dog goes into a sit. So my dog understands that, oh, sit means bum gets on the floor. Sit means bum gets on the floor. Sit means, and makes that connection of the word that I'm saying out of my mouth to what's happening. Same thing with, I have so many clients who come to me saying, like, my dog doesn't come when I call him and has a terrible recall. But at the same time, when I see what is going on behind the scenes, a lot of times people are just saying like, come, 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 around the house, like, come here, come here. But is the dog actually ending up by my side or by their side? No. So what essentially they end up, or again, I've been guilty of this, we end up teaching our dogs as well, is that come means keep doing what you're doing. And that's what it is. And it's just a word that I keep saying out of my mouth. It means nothing at all. It has no meaning attached to it. So it's really important to remember, like, what is the word that is coming out of your mouth that you're saying to your dog, and what your dog is actually doing after it. So is your dog actually coming to you when you say come? That's the only way that dog is going to make that connection, that, oh, come means this action of me going towards her, come means this action of going towards her. So another actually like fun example that I like to give people when it comes to this topic is, is actually regarding Norman, which was a few weeks ago. So now I had to retrain Norman when he was 4 years old. And the one thing that I did was, of course, was extremely consistent, like 100% times. Whenever I said come, I would make sure that I was in the position to make sure that he actually landed up by my side. So I would not say the word when he was doing something else, or he was busy, or I did not have a long line on him, wherein he could probably possibly ignore me, and I could not make sure that he would actually land up by my side. So one thing that happened one day was, we had like a little gap in our fence where he got out of the fence. Again, he wasn't trying to escape. He just was sniffing. He found the gap. He sniffed. His nose clearly took him onto this empty property that was next door. Now, the first thing that clearly came into my mind was the most natural thing that comes to us as humans was like, oh, no, stop it, come here. All of those words that come to us immediately. But the first thing, and again, I've now got into this habit in the past 7 months more than ever to be so mindful of what I'm saying to my dog. So, first thing, I had to step back and I had to say, okay, if I say no at this point of time, will I actually be able to stop him from going into that other property or going further. No, I won't, because he was just on a collar and he was roaming about freely. So if I do say no at that point of time, what I'm essentially going to teach him is no doesn't mean no all the time. No means stop doing what you're doing sometimes, but sometimes it means just ignore and keep doing what you're doing. Same thing
Yeah.
with, I said, okay, if I say come here right now, is he going to actually end up coming to me? Or do I have a way of making sure that he's going to come to me? No, I don't, because again, he wasn't on a leash. He wasn't on, I have no way of actually controlling his actions or controlling his behavior at that point of time. So I had to stop myself. I said, no, because I've taught him a certain way, and I've taught him that no means stop doing what you're doing, and I'm going to make sure of that. And come means come here to me, and I'm going to make sure of that. So I actually just filled up my treat pouch with a bunch of treats, went onto the empty plot, and all I did, which is called is bubbling up. So all I did was, when I say bubble up, I just make funny, exciting, weird noises where I'm like, "Pa, pa, pa," all of that stuff. And I started making, started bubbling up. And of course, like, he was sniffing something. He looked up and he was like, "Oh, hi, what's up? Like, what are you doing?" And he started walking towards me. Now, when he committed to walking towards me, and I actually knew that, okay, he's coming in my direction and he's actually heading in my direction, that's when I said, come. So he actually, in his mind, that come actually ended up in a come. So it's really, 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 really important to be so mindful of the words that you're saying versus what is actually happening. Because unknowingly, and again, we all do this, we didn't know better, unknowingly, we actually end up teaching our dog to ignore us without even realizing it.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
brings me to like my next slide, which is, again, I'm guilty of this too. Go ahead, yeah. Exactly this,
So,
again, I've
so
been guilty of
Mitali,
this. Yeah.
I have a question here. So I think, one of the examples which I keep saying people, that if your dog has done something wrong, do not give command. What people will usually
Absolutely.
do, come, and then they will, scold the dog. So, dog is confused whether the, come command is a positive command or a negative command. He does not understand it. I think that's what you're trying to say.
Absolutely. And I think, again, again, coming back to the fact that it's not, unless we understand all of these points, we as human beings, again, we, communicate verbally. So we think the dog understands that when we say come and we say, why did you do this? You naughty boy, blah, blah. We think that the dog is understanding those words, but the dog is not. The dog is just thinking that
Yeah.
I came to you and I got yelled at. So you know what? Next time I'm never going to come to you when you call me, because you just yell at me. Like, what is the
Yeah.
point of me coming to you if you come and yell at me? So same thing, right now I'm saying, like, we say commands like sit, sit, sit. And if she's not clearly doing a sit, so the one thing I would do in this situation is definitely, putting the collar on, putting a leash on her, either that, or making sure that somehow I would either lift, if she ignores me once, the next time what I would do is just hold her collar and actually mold her, like pull her up into a sit. So that way she knows that, okay, sit actually means get up and your bum needs to be on the floor, rather than me just saying these commands. And clearly you can see what is going through her mind right now, which is just sit means keep laying down and ignoring mom. Okay, great. Like, that's basically what I am teaching her unknowingly, because I'm just saying these commands and she's actually not um,
Yeah.
understanding or following through with the commands at that point of time. So
Yeah.
the next slide is where, whenever I'm using a particular word, at least in the beginning, where I'm teaching a dog a particular word, I always will attach the meaning of the word along with the word when I'm saying it. So I think if we move on to the next slide, we'll see
Yeah. So Mitali,
what
one
exactly.
more thing which what
Yes.
people usually do is that they will say no, and then they will do a physical gesture along with it. Like, if a dog is trying to jump on the chair, so they will push, or, they will say no, and the dog is not listening. They will go and physically move the
Yes.
dog from one place to another. What is your take
Yes.
on that? Should we
I'm
change the, yeah.
absolutely. So again, remember, what is the what do you want your dog to learn by no, right? You want your dog to learn that no means stop doing what you're doing. Now, if you just say no, no, that, and your dog still continues to do what he's doing, essentially you're teaching your dog no means keep jumping on the chair. No means keep ignoring me and jumping on the chair. So I rather do that. If my dog is doing something wrong, I will say no, and then I will actually physically, or put him on a leash and give him a timeout or something, where I actually stop the behavior. So my dog actually understands that no means this needs to stop happening. And that's the only way. So even if you are restricting your dog physically from and stopping him from doing what he's doing, that's absolutely fine. But as far as the dog makes the connection that, okay, no means stop doing what you're doing,
Right.
just saying the word makes no sense at all.
Got it. There
So,
is another
but I think
question, which is,
the
yeah,
yes,
yeah.
I
So
think one
Priya
of the
is,
things that we have to
yeah,
remember, sorry, I'm just gonna go
no, no, go
this.
on, go
I
on.
think one
Yeah,
of the things that I really would like to focus on is the fact that the point is always that, whenever even you're creating your dog or you're, keeping your dog confined or restricted, especially in the beginning, is so important because for me personally, I rather have my dog have no experiences at all than have negative experiences when I am not around. So if my dog if is unsupervised and is in the crate or is restricted and is not able to go around all over the house doing furniture or doing something wrong or jumping on things, and I'm not there to correct my dog, and whenever my dog is outside, I will actually have a very structured program as to what I'm going to do with my dog. So my dog actually, whenever my dog comes out, it's always busy. It's always doing something. It's either playing a game, I give it like interactive toys, something. So my dog is not like, oh, okay, I'm bored, I have so much energy, let me do something with my energy. And then I'm running into like, no, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that. So it's always like, hey, come out and do this. I'm giving you a job, come out and do this. So that way it's at least constructiveness that's going on with the dog, where it's learning good constructive activities and not forming any bad behaviors. And then it doesn't go into the problem of me having to say no, 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 and then again have like be that person that's constantly stopping my dog from doing things.
yeah. And this is interesting. Priya is asking, wouldn't have calling his name help? Just curious. So
So
some people say, no, Bruce, no, Norman, sit, Norman.
yeah, so
Like,
I
what,
think
what
I
is
think
your?
she's discussing. Priya, I think you're getting to the fact that calling Norman's name and having him come to me, would it have helped? Honestly, for me at that point of time, it was because I have to kind of you always have to think what you're competing against. I was competing against possible squirrels and competing against you know just the outdoor environment. And for me, at least now, over the past 7 months, I am not someone anymore that takes chances. I am not someone right now that is going to be like, oh, let me call his name and see what happens. That's something I did not want to do, because if I did call his name and he said, ah, okay, that squirrel's more important right now, what I would have essentially done was like pretty much ruin my come command, wherein I would have taught him that a come doesn't mean come at all points of time. But until then, for him, come meant come every single time. And I ensured that. So I was just being cautious in that particular scenario. But yeah,
Got it.
I've just
Yeah.
learned not to take chances anymore.
Yeah, so great point said by Ruhi, who is a fellow trainer. She says either train your dog or your dog will train you, whichever makes both happy.
That's true. Honestly, Rui, I've told clients as well. I was like, hey, if it's not a problem for you, it's not a problem for me. And there are
Right.
so many behaviors that are, you got to pick your battles when somebody says, oh, no, it's not an issue. It's not an issue. That's absolutely fine.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So
So yeah, I
let's
think
continue.
bringing
Yeah.
me to my next slide, I think will actually explain the point that I spoke about right now, which is, at least in the beginning, once your dog learns these particular words and you've attached meanings to these words. So in the beginning, if I'm teaching a dog something, can we just move to the next slide, Rana?
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. So in the beginning, when I'm actually teaching a dog something and it's a new dog, of course, Pantu knows this command because I've again paired it with the action of this more than enough times. Wherein if I say get off, she's supposed to get down from whichever surface that she's on. Well, honestly, generally for her, she has a get on command. This is clearly something that I just did for the PPT. So I asked her to get on and then I asked her to get off. But one of the things that I focus on is, at least in the beginning, and when you're teaching your dog what words mean, or even if you've done this wrong in the past and now you want to restart and get a fresh start, which is absolutely possible with any dog, it's always important to kind of club the word with that particular action, club the word and teach the dog the meaning of that action. So right here, I said get off. And once I said get off, I held her collar and kind of directed her down. So now she knows, okay, get off means get down. Versus if I was just saying, get down, get down, get down, assuming that she understands English, that's not right on my part because I am confusing my dog and not communicating with her in the right way.
Right.
So that's important to remember. Yeah. So moving on to, can we get back onto me, Rana, please?
Yeah. Yes.
You.
There we
So one
go.
of the things that, of course, so it's important to remember like what are the words that we're saying out of our mouth to our dog and what is actually happening. When you're saying no, are you actually making sure that the dog stops doing the particular behavior? Are you just saying no mindlessly? When you're saying sit, are you actually making sure that the dog's bum hits the floor? Or you're just saying it mindlessly? Any words that come out of your mouth, just try and be mindful from today as to what you're saying to your dog at all points of time. Of course, later on, once your dog understands those words and they automatically do it on their own, because you've built a good foundation and have built a good communication since a while, then
Yeah.
automatically they understand those words and start doing them on their own. So that's one. But next thing that I want to get into is actually reinforcement,
Reinforcement.
and
Yeah.
I wanted to discuss what reinforcement is. So reinforcement is basically any particular scenario, any particular I wouldn't say reward, but reinforcement can be of different types, right? So you have to remember that reinforcement is something that actually increases the rate of a behavior at any period of time, at any point of time. Now, the one example that I actually want to give you guys is reinforcement for a dog can be anything at that moment of time. It doesn't always mean food, water, praise. It could be many things. Sometimes, like for example, digging. Digging is a behavior that is reinforcing in itself. Wherein digging brings pleasure. It's the behavior that brings pleasure in itself. Jumping as well sometimes is a behavior that is self-reinforcing. So the jump behavior in itself gives the dog pleasure. So there are
Barking as well at times.
different timings. Barking as well. Yes,
Yeah.
barking as well is a reinforcing behavior where sometimes it gives the dog pleasure, where you might not be reinforcing the dog from the outside, but at least I want to go into like what we are doing and what we can do better in order to not reinforce our dog for the wrong things and remember to reinforce our dogs for the right things. So, of course, at any point of time, every dog's motivation is different. And the one thing I tell all my clients is dogs are extremely intelligent creatures, and no dog is doing any behavior without a reason. There is something that the dog is gaining out of that particular behavior. So, again, I've been there, and I also have clients who's like, we have no idea why he does this. He keeps performing this particular behavior, and it's so annoying, and like we don't understand. Point being, even like jumping on people, begging at the table, any sort of those behaviors. So one of the things that we have to focus on is always think from the dog's perspective as to what the dog is gaining out of that particular behavior. Now, a simple example could be I get dogs out for separation anxiety or even isolation anxiety where the dog is not comfortable with being alone by itself, right? And a lot of clients, will get the puppy home. You get the puppy home on the first day, you put it in the room, first day or second day or whenever, you put the puppy in the room because you want to teach it to stay alone by itself, and you walk out of the room and close the door, go out, and the first thing probably the puppy does is vocalizes. So goes, as soon as the puppy does that. Now, again, remember, this is a verbal issue versus a physical issue wherein, we think that the dog understands words. So most people will actually, and I think I do have a slide for
Yeah.
that, which we'll get into. But one of the things that we do
You
is,
want me to go on the slide now?
yeah, I think the next one. Yeah, the next one.
The next one. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things that we do is we'll open the door, and people open the door and say quiet. Shh, yep, yep. No barking. No quiet at that point of time. Now the important thing to remember here is at this point of time the dog, you have actually accidentally, it's not, you're not doing it out of intentionally, but unintentionally, you have taught the dog at this point of time that barking brings the humans back. Now, it's also important to remember that a lot of times negative attention is better than no attention at all for a dog. So a lot of times what you end up teaching the dog, and this is what your dog is thinking, that, hey, okay, even if the human comes to shout at me, at least she comes back. So it's fine. Even if she comes to shout at me, she comes back. So that's fine. Something's better than nothing at all. So you end up teaching the dog that, okay, you know what? Every time you bark, I'm going to come back. Every time you bark, and I'm going to come back. And that's something that you will then, like, unknowingly increase the behavior. And then, of course, I've had a dog once who literally would bark nonstop for like 2.5, 3 hours and just tire himself out. And it's common, but it's something that we start by reinforcing this behavior, and we don't understand we're reinforcing it. But it's important to remember, what is my dog gaining out of this behavior at that point of time? Because your dog, trust me, your dog is not doing something just because. It's always got a reason, and you always have to kind of think as to what that reason is. To give you another simple example was, uh, you know
So Bruce is
yeah.
now barking, and I think he's talking to his fellows around. So he barks, and then they bark, and then he barks again. And sometimes he just
Exactly.
barks for his self. What did you say? He wants to just
Yeah, it's
self reinforce him and
self-reinforcing
self.
behavior. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes
absolutely. It
he's
is.
uh, and he's being
Mm,
a shepherd. He's very loud, and he wants to talk all the time. And so is our friend Karan's Pasha. He also speaks and talks
yes.
a lot. And what I have seen with shepherds is they're extremely alert. So I have seen there are three. Well, he barks for at
Sorry,
three
Rana,
times.
can we
One is
go
that
back
his
onto us?
sorry, yeah, sorry.
So can we go back? Yeah, go. Yeah.
So, so he barks on when he's talking to other guys. He barks when he's raising an alarm, kind of
Yes.
guarding, protective, those kind of things. And then he's trying to reinforce his happiness and his, self-appreciation behavior that look at me and those kind of
True.
things. So I mean,
And
there
a
are,
lot of, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
gone.
But like, even with those kind of behaviors, a lot of times, again, we've all done this. So have I. Now I know better. But a lot of times, when, even when the dog is doing any of these attention seeking behaviors, we look and we're like, what happened? Quiet now. I'm working. Like, I mean, we'll, without realizing, make communication with the dog, and automatically the dog kind of has then realizes that, oh, okay, like, if I do this particular behavior, I get some sort of, even at begging at the table is like one of those things that, a lot of times when the dog comes to the table, of course, I would say 99.99% of the times, there has been that one time that dog has got something off the table for
Yeah,
sure. There is no dog that will sit around the table if he's not got success even
not good.
once.
Got it.
There's
Yeah,
always that one time that it's happened. And that's why now your dog just thinks that it's going to happen every single time. He should lurk around the table. But even when that happens, we, again, as humans, will look at the dog and be like, shh, go away. No, no, no coming here. But again, that is also a form of reinforcement, form of attention and communication that you're giving the dog. So the dog is like, okay, I'd rather stay here and get some sort of reaction from my human than like go onto the other side and sit on my bed where it's so boring and there's like nothing happening. So always remember, like, what sort of reinforcement you are providing. I think one example that I wanted to give here was, I had a client that came to me, I think about a year and a half ago, wherein they came to me with, this was a call that I got where, they called me, they're like, oh, we need you urgently. We've got a very serious like case. I was like, okay, what's going on? Like, what happened? So they had an 11-month-old golden retriever, about 11 to 12-month-old golden retriever, and basically they had somebody come into their house, a guest come into the house, and she came with her elderly father. And the father was, they both walked in, and again, this dog was not, didn't have any aggression issues at all. The dog just got excited because there was a stranger that walked in, and jumped on the old man, and the old man fell, and it actually became really ugly because they had to take him to the hospital. He broke his hip, and they needed like ICU, hip replacement surgery. It all got very, very serious, very, very quick. And then after that, of course, now everybody's like, it's a bad dog. The whole building society is saying it's a bad dog. Everybody's like, and of course, I said, I'm here to fix it, and I'll help you through the process. But it's important to remember I think one thing that I always do is advocate for any dog that comes to me, because that is my job, is to understand why the dog is doing what it's doing and help the dog and work with the dog, because it's never me against the dog. It's always me and the dog as one team, and then we're working on the humans in the house. So it's always one thing that needs to understand. So I said, okay, let's go back, right? Let's go back when you guys got this dog as a 6-month-old puppy. Sorry, as a 3-month-old puppy or a 2-month-old puppy, which was just not too while back. It was about 6 months ago, 6, 7 months ago. And I said, you guys got this puppy, and it was a cute little fluffy 2 kg golden retriever puppy that came into your house. And you walked into the house when this puppy was there, and all of us are like, oh my God, such a cute puppy. The puppy is like this little fluffy thing that's jumping up on his 2 paws up on you, and you look down and you're like, oh, hi, baby, so cute, you're so cute, all of this stuff. So remember how much you have reinforced that behavior since your puppy was that age.
Yeah.
So your puppy was like, oh my God, putting my paws up on human beings is the best thing ever,
Yeah.
because they gave me so much love, so much attention, so much everything.
The puppy
And then
size.
after that,
Yeah.
exactly. So the puppy's
Yeah.
brain is like, wow, this is an awesome thing. I should keep performing this behavior because it's clearly giving me so much results. And then after that, remember, you call all of these people in your house because everybody wants to come meet the puppy now. So, everyone's like, can we come see your puppy? Can we come see your puppy? Everybody that walked into the house, every stranger that walked into the house, again, the puppy was up on the person. The people were looking down, reinforcing that behavior constantly. And you have taught that puppy that putting his paws
Yeah.
up on you is a great idea. And now suddenly your dog is 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, and is 30 kilos and not 3 kilos anymore. And it's now inconvenient for you that happened. And now it's such a bad dog. But you
Yeah.
always have to look at why the dog is doing this and why the dog is doing that. So I think one thing that, of course, with Pantu, luckily she's not a heavy dog, but I have taught her like the up command, on command, and I do have enough control over her where I can tell her to, kind of control her even before she gets on there saying, nah, no, sit, or, she'll only come up when I ask her to. But if it's a client's dog, I would literally, and if the dog is jumping up, getting excited, I will literally just walk through the dog pretending like it's invisible, where the dog
Yes.
is like, hey,
Yeah.
hey, hey,
Invisible.
trying to
Yeah.
get your attention. And, you know,
Yeah.
eventually the dog's going to realize this is not working anymore. But remember what you're reinforcing all the time, all the time.
So there is
That's
this
something that's
question
going to
which
help.
is about the biting. My friend's German Shepherd bites people for which the family is little concerned. How can they change this habit? So I think they will definitely have to take one-on-one sessions, because German Shepherds are not so easy to be understood by a lot of people. They're very protective
Yeah,
about their families and stuff like that. So what do you recommend,
absolutely.
Mitali, while
I
we are
think the
talking about
one thing
biting?
that when it comes to aggression, it's such a deep topic, and I think when I do my aggression consults, there's so much information that I need. Is like where you got the dog from, what the genetic history is, how old when you saw first behaviors cropping up. There's so many questions that I need to know exactly what happened, because so many different types of aggressions too. So, at that point of time, of course, you have to think about, I would definitely have to see the dog and know a lot more information
Yeah.
about the dog before I can
Yeah.
give any kind of solution, because it's not right for me to give one
That's
solution
what I thought.
for an
Yeah.
aggression problem. It's
Yeah.
something that I will definitely have to get into. Yeah, you can set up a
So
consultation,
you
or
can
your
yeah.
friend can set up a consultation
Yeah.
with me
Yeah.
after. Yeah, yeah.
So there is a question by Mona Lisa. She says we have tried ignoring, but that does not work, and she is just more curious with all the smells. What can we do in this case? I think I
So,
usually
yeah.
completely ignore. I do not pay attention to whatever the dog is doing, or at least whenever
Yeah.
I'm coming inside a room where the dog is who is very excited and stuff like that. So that's what I do, and
So I think, Mona
for
Lisa,
expert
it
advice.
really
Yeah.
depends. Yeah, but I think it really depends on what exactly, and of course, every dog is different. And I think my approach towards every dog is slightly different, no matter what. But I think the one tip that I would give you is definitely doing what I call incompatible behaviors. So like a completely different behavior. So like one thing that I do is, which I do with a lot of my big dog cases, is I condition them with like either a go to bed command or place command, or something wherein like when people walk into the house, go to your place, and like you'll get something awesome if you're on your bed, and if all four paws are on that particular surface and on that particular bed, that's when you're going to get reinforced, and that's when you're going to get heavy rewards. So I would prefer teaching my dog to do something else instead of jumping, because a lot of time what ends up happening is just saying no is not enough. So for me, I rather tell my dog that, hey, you cannot jump right now because you have to do go to bed. You cannot do this right now because you have to heal. You
Great.
cannot do this particular thing right now because you have to sit. But of course, a good basic
So,
obedience foundation will really go a long way.
yeah, so Mona Lisa adds this. This is regarding the table food habit. She has got a Dachshund puppy, which is, I think, 4 or 5 months old.
Got you.
Uh,
So
and yeah,
again, this is another thing that I would definitely do the place or go to bed command with. And I've done it. I don't know if you guys, well, I don't think Mona Lisa, you've seen me with Norman and on Instagram, but one of the things that I did with him was this is like every time we would sit for dinner, I would practice his go to bed command. And by the end of it, literally I would take out our dinner plates and he would like run to his bed and like sit on his bed, because he knew that while we eat dinner, he's going to get some tidbits as far as he stays on that bed right then and there. So teaching him
very
a
nice.
good place or a good bed command will really help you in this situation. Is like every time we eat, you have to be on that surface and you'll get rewarded, but provided you don't leave that surface at that point of time, should really help.
Yeah, there's a
But I
very
wanted to get into, yeah, sorry.
yeah. Yeah, there's another question. We'll take that and then move on.
Yeah.
I have a 1.5 year old Indie who just wants to play with me all the time, but he doesn't know how to control. So, what we do usually, and you can say whether we are doing it right or wrong, we usually have timings for playtime, eat time, bedtime, and then crate time. So, if it is not a time where they need to, I mean, if it's not a playing time, they cannot, right? So they are either in the crate or they're sleeping or they're doing something, right? So,
True.
following a strict
I think
schedule
one of
definitely helps.
the, yeah. And I think
And
one of the
what do you
things that
suggest?
I personally also follow, again, it's very cute, for, for me also. Again, I've struggled with this where it's very cute when our dog brings a toy to us and is like, oh, please play with me. But like now knowing what I know, in my dog's mind, literally my dog is like, hey, human, chal, come play with me. That's exactly what's going on in my dog's mind. And that's
Yeah,
something that I do not encourage at all, because I don't want to run into any kind of, I would say, any kind of confusion in our relationship and any kind of confusion in that structure of our relationship. So the one thing
yeah,
that I do focus on is definitely like I will always take my toy to the dog, and I'm going to say tug or give it a command like, hey, now we can play and we can go crazy. But if I am not into, like, if I'm busy and my dog's just coming and like, hey, hello, like that's pretty much rude. It's just rude behavior. It's like same thing. Like you would not encourage your child to constantly keep coming to you while you're on a meeting or have something to do to keep disturbing you. It's the exact same thing. So I do not
right.
encourage my dog to keep
Yeah,
coming up to me and disturbing me at all. And again,
yeah,
remember reinforcement. If your dog comes to you with the toy and you do play with him, you have taught your dog that it's okay to do that. So it's kind of important to remember what are the behaviors that you're reinforcing, going back into reinforcement. I think one of the things that I wanted to also focus on was, again, this is only in the beginning stages when I am teaching a dog a particular behavior. Again, attaching what the word means to like what the action is. Of course, once she knows the behavior and once I have been 100% consistent with it and she knows what it means, then I don't have to do that anymore. But at least in the beginning, I do have to do that. And I think one of the things I remember I saw a question somewhere with like, my dog only listens to me when I give it
yeah, on
treats.
the
I think
street.
one of
Yeah.
the, yeah, I think that personally has been a big eye opener for me,
Hmm.
because I used to use heavily, I still do, but now I don't use a treat to teach a dog a particular behavior. I either use leash pressure and I teach a dog a particular behavior without using a treat. And then I like to teach my dog that, hey, sit. And once you do a sit, then you'll get a treat as a bonus. But I have now stopped using those methods of like begging my dog, like, please sit, please sit. No, like I don't like doing that anymore. Because I've seen the other side and the flip side of it and the outside of it. So I prefer my dog, like making my dog doing it and then rewarding it because it did the behavior rather than like begging my dog to
So
do that
yeah, so
particular behavior.
yeah, so that change I also did while reading around and listening to you guys. So I invested in a very small thing, which is a treat pouch. And earlier, what used to happen, I used to hold the
Absolutely.
treats in my hands and or the pockets, and then there will always be something in my hand. So as soon as you have a treat pouch,
Treat pouch.
right, it becomes so easy to get in, take the treat out, and then give
It's a
instead
game
of keeping it.
changer. It is a
Yeah, yeah,
game
yeah.
changer.
Yeah, treat pouch and
Absolutely.
clicker. These two things have been
Yes.
very, very yeah, good for. So
Absolutely. I
basically,
think
Devshri,
life
we
changing.
should, yeah. So
Mhm.
basically, what is happening? I think I'll just reiterate it that when we are training the dogs and we are showing them the treats to do the stuff, we should never show them the treats. They should understand the gestures. Like when we do sit, I usually do this, and the dog will sit. And you need not to use treats at the time of training. You need to use treats after you have
Yes. So I
trained.
generally
And
have my treat pouch now, which is kind of
yeah.
camouflage where I'm not holding it in my hand and I'll make my dog do it and then I'll reward it after the behavior is done. Of course, you
Mhm.
can use, remember the 1.3-second rule, and the clicker is extremely important. The clicker is actually based on the 1.3-second rule where you click
Right,
within 1.3 seconds
within
of the
one
dog
point.
performing that particular behavior.
Yeah.
So once your dog's bum hits the floor, you click. Of course, you have to charge the clicker, which maybe sometimes we'll get into. But maybe but you have to kind of teach the dog what the clicker means because that is something we call conditioned reinforcement. But not getting into that. But that's something that clicker and treat pouch like will change your training game. But I think
Very,
the
very
last point.
interesting
Yeah.
question. Yes, sorry, you complete it and then we'll take this question.
No, no, go
Very
for it. Go for
interesting
it. No
question.
worries.
Okay, so very interesting question. Anand Singhal is asking, and this question even I keep thinking because Bruce is very working line type of a
Indeed.
German Shepherd by his behavior set. So does it make sense to train my Rottweiler protection training even if he never needs to use, even if we never used to use it, and if I have time and skills required just to keep him active, mentally stimulated, only if he has good temperament when he becomes an adult. So, we have these dogs at home. Does it even make sense for us to do protection training? Does it help the dog to be more disciplined and maybe mentally stimulated? I think that's what the question.
So I personally love this question because I have seen a whole different world when I was in the US. And I've, if you asked me, Anant, if you asked me this question last year, I would have said maybe not. But now I have seen the different side of protection work. Of course, it depends because I think protection training also has so many different, so many different attributes and so many different sides to it. And of course, there's also protection sports, which is huge, which is literally just a sport. It's not like your dog is going around biting people. It's just a game for the dog. So I would actually recommend maybe getting your dog into maybe some kind of protection sport. If he's not going to be used for, you don't actually need him to be a protection dog. That would be something that I would ask you to look into. But I do think if you have the skill set, you have good control, you have a balanced, well-behaved dog, you guys have a good relationship, then there's no real harm. In fact, I think the one thing that I used to think that has like changed my thought process so much is one of my instructors actually does PSA and he does protection work. And literally, like his dog could be, we think that, and most people think that protection dogs are like vicious and they're going to go biting around people. Literally, like he used to do his protection work and then he used to come chill in our class like the most docile, like all of us could be on him, like playing with him, everything. It's just like an on and off switch. Like when the suit is on, he's like game time versus when the suit is off, he's just the most chill dog on this planet. So it doesn't mean that the dog is going to go biting people around or you're looking at it dangerous, provided you are capable and you're doing a good job at it. So yeah.
This is a question which you would understand more. Kashi is
Yeah.
in. is an enthusiast for training
Yes.
dogs. He has got a Weimaraner and a Malinois and a Jack Russell as well. Do you prefer free shaping or luring when teaching new behaviors? And
Got you.
how you would implement this when teaching behaviors to be executed at a distance?
At a distance. So I think, Kashi, firstly, I've done both in the past, and I've also now kind of started using a little bit of leash pressure and like pressure based training as well. And I think that has worked pretty well for me. Um, Personally, now I do see myself moving away from luring and going more into free shaping for sure, rather than luring, because at the end of the day, I think we do want to move away from it. But I think it completely depends as to what the behavior you're looking at and like what is the specific task that you're looking at. But I think in terms of executed at a distance, I would definitely look more at free shaping and at look at her. This is again attention seeking behaviors, which now I'm going to ignore. Another thing that I have to tell you guys is sorry, I'm going to answer that question first, but I think free shaping would be when I'm looking at distance, and then definitely using the clicker when you're using distance based, when you're doing distance based training and distance based tasks. I've seen that work beautifully when the click and right when you can have the reward right next to the dog, and have the click and let him get the toy or get the reward immediately. So that, I hope that kind of
Yeah.
answered. That, I think for me
Is it,
personally, now I'm going to move away a little bit from luring.
we are getting a lot of questions, Mitali, suddenly. I will just take one
Yeah, so I
more and
think
then
I'm
we'll
going to
continue. You want to pick
Yeah,
any
so
of
I
the questions?
think
There is,
one of the things that I'm going to also do is maybe just conclude my last two slides, and then we
yeah,
can get
and then we'll
into
come back.
the questions.
So,
But I
so
think the last and
Shweta,
foremost
we are
thing,
coming back.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes, yes. So I think the one of the things that I would look at is definitely, which is the last part of something that I want all of y'all to remember, is definitely consistency is the most important thing that you will teach your dog. You have to be consistent 100% of the times, because the most important thing to remember, so like simple thing like something like jumping is a behavior right now where say one or two people in the house want to ignore, but the most important thing to remember is that if you are not consistent with what you're teaching your dog, you're actually going to, so something called intermittent reinforcement, where you're actually going to reinforce the behavior if you're not consistently, where I would say punishing it, but not consistently being consistent punishment. Basically, if you're not ignoring her all the time, then you're going to reinforce that behavior. The same thing, to give you one last example in this scenario, would definitely be if you are, this is the main reason why people go to casinos and gamble. It's not like you're getting money every single time, but the one thing you have to remember is that even if, why do people gamble, or why do most people gamble, is because there is that one chance where you can win something, and that's exactly what you teach your dog when you are not consistent. Is there is that one chance that your dog will be successful, and that is why, so I think the next slide will kind of put things into perspective. If we could go on to the next slide,
Yeah.
is yeah, um, what, there you go. So exactly what I'm coming to in the end is everybody needs to be consistent with what you're trying to teach the dog, in everyone in the family. And I do know that in India it's very different, where we have staff and we have everybody, which is why now all the more I think crate training is amazing, where you can actually control the experiences your dog is having more than ever. But again, like, just for example, like another member of the family or guests in the house, they're like, oh, but she's so cute, but look at what my dog is learning there, where she's like, okay, so sometimes I get love and sometimes I get ignored, so maybe I should just try jumping on them every single time, because there is that 1% chance that I might get success at this behavior and I might get reinforced. So you have to be extremely consistent with your dog at all points of time, so the dog actually understands like the blanket rule. Because with dogs there's no gray area, there's no sometimes it's allowed and sometimes it's not allowed, unless you put the behavior on cue or on a command. But yeah, so that's something that I want to leave all of you with, is be consistent. Remember the 4 points. Yeah, and maybe we can get into some other questions now.
Yeah, so the 4 points, I'll just do the summary of it. Timing, 1.3
Yes.
second rule we spoke about, word and action, reinforcement and consistency, right? Those are four important rules how dogs learn. And
Yeah.
we will, give some time for the questions. And
Yes.
yeah, coming back. Weasel is here. Weasel is saying, put Mitali in big frame. So coming
Awesome.
back.
Back.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
so we can go into, a few
Shweta's
questions that,
question. Yeah. So Shweta says,
yeah.
Mitali, you mentioned about leash pressure. Could you please throw
Yeah.
light on how okay is it to train with leash pressure, since it is usually considered as a form of negative reinforcement? Is that a
Yeah.
myth, or it's okay to put subtle pressure? So I have used clip-ons a lot, especially with
Yes,
German Shepherds.
yeah.
Yeah, and this is an
I've used
interesting
them too
question. Would like to know
now, wherein
perspective. Yeah.
I have, so honestly, when you look into like how you're making the dog think, right? Of course, this is not when, even when you're looking at, I think the one thing that we need to remember, especially when we go into like the four quadrants, because since Shweta's bringing them up, and maybe some of the pet parents might not understand this, but this is just for you guys and Shweta. But I think when you go into the four quadrants, I think we need to stop looking at, and when we look at like positive reinforcement, positive punishment, negative punishment, I think that we get to, like, especially again, I've been there where we get too emotionally caught up in like, is punishment actually like beating my dog? Is punishment actually like, because we look at the word punishment so badly. But I think when we look at the meanings of how it's used in dog psychology and how it's used in dog training, it's actually very different. And it was a big eye opener for me personally. So when I'm looking at, of course, negative reinforcement, I'm looking at definitely adding slight bit of leash pressure on the dog's neck. When the neck goes up, the bum goes down. And in this situation, the dog, when I'm doing any kind of leash pressure and using negative reinforcement, the dog is actually getting rewarded twice. The pressure is going away and he's getting a treat. So in the dog's mind, the dog is like, wow, I won twice over. Like something that was slightly uncomfortable went away and I got rewarded on top of it. But I personally, now going forward, I think I have uh, again seen the other side of it, and I've seen how much then how quickly I can do away with food, and how quickly I can kind of get the dog to listen to me without luring. So that's definitely, and again, like, if you do see me, and maybe I'm actually going to restart training Pantu, because it's been 7 months and nobody's done any training with her at home, and madam is now got a few attention seeking behaviors, is a little bit so I'm going to restart training her with like negative reinforcement and slight pressure. So it's not, I've never found it's not like it's hurting the dog or the dog is uncomfortable, um, or it's not bad at all. At least, again, this is just me personally, the way I do it. I don't know about anyone else. I cannot speak for anyone else.
Yeah. Yeah. Got
Yeah.
it. And I mean, we were having that discussion, if little bit of pressure corrects the dog, and we are able to save the life of the dog, then it's a lot, it's a lot more to save the life first, right?
Absolutely. I think that is a point that I would, again, eye opener over the past 7 months. But I think
Yeah.
there are a few dogs that I dealt with, um, that when I looked at that, and I was like, and these are dogs. Like Norman was a dog that was going to be put down. He was at the shelter. He
Yeah.
was a black dog to dog aggression, all of these, lots of issues. In fact, we had another dog on the course, a German Shepherd named Boss. And again, a case that would have been put down. A lot of trainers had given up on this dog, and the academy took him in. And yeah, at some point of times, if there is a time where I have to tell a dog that, hey, like, there is going to be a point of time. I remember Rana and I were talking about this yesterday, but I said there is going to be a point of time when my dog is going to um, look at something, or going to want to chase something, or going to want to lunge at something. And I realized this firsthand, when my cheese, my hot dogs, my whatever that I have in my treat pouch is just not going to work, when my dog's going to say, I don't care
Yeah.
about food right now. I have something else that I want to do. And at that point of time, if I have to put certain pressure and let my dog know that, hello, like, that's not allowed. Like, you cannot do that. You cannot be barking and lunging and biting other dogs. That's just not allowed anymore. And if that means that I save this dog from being put down, I think it's a win-win for the dog
So,
for
so
life.
Mitali, are you saying that you were able to save life of Norman by
Honestly,
getting him
I
back
would
on?
not. I would say, of course, he was a dog that was going to be put down, and he did get rescued. I don't know if I saved his life or not, but I definitely know, if there's one thing I would say, I think that it made the process a lot faster, and it got my communication and point a lot faster through to him,
Hmm.
for sure. Yeah.
Great. Yeah.
So that's that.
So,
Anyway, yes. Oh
yeah,
wow,
there is
we have a
a bunch of questions. So we are overshooting the time. You have time, Mitali. Can we continue with a few questions
yes, yes.
quickly?
I'm
Okay.
happy to. I'm happy to.
Okay. Mitiksha is asking, I have a 1.5 years old golden retriever. We are facing problem with him barking at the other dogs. And he's super friendly with other dogs, but barks at,
Yeah.
when he sees from the balcony. I think they need to make him more interested in something else
Got you. But
while
also
he's,
remember
yeah.
that when he does go into the balcony and he is barking at other dogs from the balcony, the more you allow that, again, that is the reinforcing behavior. So you're reinforcing that behavior over and over again. The fact that he gets to practice that behavior over and over again in itself means, remember, practice makes perfect, applies for the dog and humans as well. So the more he
Hmm.
practices that behavior, the better he becomes at it. So you
Hmm.
have to interrupt him, you have to stop him from performing that particular behavior, even if that means that, of course, we can get into more details maybe on a private session, wherein what are the things that we can do to distract his mind. The one thing I used to do with Norman, which something he used to do personally, is he wouldn't get by the end, so he would get stressed out around other dogs, and that's why he would react around other dogs. In fact, he even, the first day I got that dog, he even redirected on me and tried to bite me once.
Have you
But the
got
one thing that
have you got bitten by any dog ever, Mitali, till now while you were training?
I think,
Okay.
well, I have once in my 8 year career, but it was the funniest story, which maybe we can discuss another time. And it's actually somebody that called me to see their, this is when you guys are going to laugh. It was a 14-year-old Pomeranian.
Oh, okay.
And the clients blatantly lied to me about why they were calling me, and did not tell me this dog had an aggression issue. So yeah, basically we can get into more of those details. But Ali came with me. My husband came with me for the session, and the dog actually tried to lunge at my husband, so I had to grab him so that my husband doesn't get bitten.
Yeah.
And then yeah, he got me once on my
I
finger,
was
but that was one
I
of the
was
things.
I was interviewing Chetna once, and she's into protection dog training as well as
Yes.
very aggressive dog training. She got bitten by dogs multiple times, but was able to save lives of these dogs
Come here.
because they were very, very aggressive, was on the line to be put down. People said that they will never
Yes.
be
Good.
able to correct them, but yeah, you get bitten, but you get
Got it.
to save lives as well of these.
So yeah,
There is
so I
a
think
very interesting
coming
food.
back to
Yeah,
your the old point was definitely, look at how you can break that habit, and just like the ideal thing is like find a way where he doesn't practice those behaviors. And of course we can, I can go more in depth about it with you
yeah,
privately or personally.
yeah.
Yeah, my puppy
So
is
there
10
is
weeks
very
old. How
interesting
much?
question. The crate timing. How do we calculate the crate time?
So, Rana, I think you should be able to answer this too.
I think there is a rule that with the age of the puppy into 1.5 times uh, of the number of months into 1.5 times.
Yeah,
I
yes,
think that's
it's
and
generally
that is the
that, but
number
of
of
course
hours
I
you
think
can.
there is, yeah, there is a capping of, that that point. But my general, personally, like, again, every puppy is different, and I always take it at the puppy's rate as well. So of course my puppy, with my general rule with a 10-week-old puppy is, with toilet training, I'm going to be taking out the puppy every hour. So I will be taking the puppy out to pee at least every 1.5 hour from the crate anyway. And of course, the rule to remember with crate training always is that whenever your puppy is outside the crate, make sure your puppy is very, very well mentally and physically stimulated. So we should never look at the crate as like a place where you just lock up the dog and leave him in there. It's always like the dog's private
Display.
space in
Safe
bedroom where
place.
the dog goes to like relax and sleep.
Yeah.
And good crate training has to be combined with good mental and physical stimulation outside the crate. That's the only
Yeah.
way we're going to get success with crate training.
Yeah. So Prajakta is asking, I have an 8-year-old golden retriever crossbred. He is very afraid of stepping outside the gate. Since few days, he only like to come out when there are no vehicles, voice, or it's not raining. Try to calm him by offering food. He don't even look at any of these streets when he's outside the house. In this case, what are the best thing to do?
So, Prajakta, of course, I want to know more about like, is there anything that has specifically happened on some day where, he got spooked or he's had a negative experience? Has he been absolutely fine until now? So I just want to know like all of those details before I get into, because after 8 years, when like something this sudden happens, there's probably something that has happened that has made a very lasting impact on his mind to going out. So that's something I would definitely look into. But anyways, the road ahead would definitely be, again, depends on what treats you're using, but I would probably do a little bit of deprivation where I'm kind of then, feeding him his meals outside and making it kind of just mandatory for him to go outside where he doesn't have a choice. And slowly getting over his fears and then creating positive experiences towards that. But yeah, no. But also look into like
Uh,
what exactly happened.
Yeah, before we take this question, there's a question Soumya has asked. My 9-month lab is super friendly, but problem is that she jumps a lot at people and that at times intimidates others. So, Soumya, you'll have to probably watch this live from the
Yeah, a
beginning
little
once
bit.
this
Yes.
gets finished.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have just spoken about it in detail, and Mitali has covered this topic. So I think that should help. Anant is talking about he has got 2 dogs and should he train them together or I know we
So
should
the one
ideally
thing,
not
Ananda,
take
I
that. Thank you.
would focus on is no, I would not. I would either work on a crate system where both of them are in their separate crates. I would firstly get, especially 2 months and 7 months, you're looking at getting one out, training, then getting the other out, training, one out, training. It's a little more work, but it's always important to remember if your training with each dog individually is not solid, together it's going to be a disaster. So you have to have solid training with each dog individually and solid
Mhm.
communication and relationship with each dog individually before you can even put them together. But it's possible in the future.
Yeah. Okay. Venkata, we are going to come back to your question in the end because it is an interesting question to end the
I cannot.
conversation.
Okay. Okay.
Uh, yeah. So we have Soumyananda asking, my 9-month-old adopted lab isn't trained, and the only thing she knows is sit and stay, and she is potty trained. What are the basic stuff I can teach, and how? So
There,
basically,
there
uh,
is, yeah.
so there is
There
no
is
end.
honestly a lot. Yeah, I was just gonna say, I was like, you cannot begin. But I think if you go, even if you go onto my Instagram, I have a bunch of tutorial videos that I do with clicker tricks that I have done with Norman. Hopefully, I'll be able to do a good big series soon where I can actually, because the funny thing is, I have gotten so much into clicker training in the past 7 months, which I wasn't before I left. So I'm actually looking at clicker training Pantu all over again, and doing a bunch of fun new tricks with her because she's actually a very like food motivated dog. And once you have a food motivated dog, you can use clicker training and do so many things with your dog.
Yeah,
So yeah, I would definitely say, look at, there's so many things you can teach her. When it comes to teaching basic stuff, but I think my basics would definitely be like place, come, sit, stay. Those are like, of course, the 4 basics that you would need it down. Those are the 4 basic commands. But then after that, tricks, you can do anything. I think I've done Norman's one dog, I've done so much with.
yeah. So Kashi is the one who introduced me to, who actually pushed me into clicker training because he asked me to get a clicker for him, and which he
Yeah.
never collected, and I could not give him. So I was left with this very nice clicker. So I started using it on training Bruce, and I'm picking it up now. He is asking, curious about what course you undertook, and would you be able to talk about it?
So I did the 12-week course with Starmark, which is near Austin, Texas, and I was there for 3 months. It was, I personally would say, a life-changing experience. My instructors were fabulous, and one of the things that I think the course basically works around 12 weeks, wherein you go into, and they basically get dogs from rescues that have been given up for behavioral issues. A lot of dogs that were going to be put down, serious behavioral issues as well, and they actually get those dogs in, they get our students in, and we all learn together, which is like us and the dogs as well. And actually, like, it's funny because if somebody had told me that I would be able to do the kind of things that I did with Norman, which was like complete off-leash healing, complete off-leash like recall, all the tricks that I did with him, competitive obedience with Fury, who was my other dog, uh, in a span of 12 weeks. But at the same time, literally, we had no other life. We were training for whoever followed me on that journey. I was like, every single day was like nothing less than 25 to 30,000 steps. I also lost like 6 to 7 kilos or 8 kilos on the course. We were on our feet 24/7. But
Wow.
it was like, I would not have it any other way. It was absolutely fabulous.
Uh-huh.
Though,
Good.
like, I think the road ahead is definitely, if you're looking at, basics and everything, basics to advance and like a more wholesome course, then definitely I would highly recommend this one. But at the same time, if you're looking at something more advanced, like I know like Tom Rose has a school that does a lot of like sport-based work. Michael Ellis has another school. So there's so many like different, depending on what you're looking at, depending on what you're looking for.
Uh, so Dinkar is a very good friend of mine. He
Yes.
lives in Missouri. He has got beautiful spaniels, King Charles, I guess.
Yep.
And then he has got Labradors as well. He says, when you use leash pressure and double
Yeah,
treat the
yeah,
dog. Yeah,
yeah.
you got it. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we're trying to, maybe there's been again like some sort of confusion here. I think then when I'm talking about like behaviors, I'm looking at specifically teaching new commands or teaching new positions. So I would look at like pressure, bum hits the floor, click, pressure goes away, and reward comes in. So I'm using it only in the beginning to teach new behaviors. Once the dog has learned the behavior, then pressure is only used if the dog chooses not to perform that behavior, even after knowing that particular behavior. But I'm not using it right now. As in, I haven't spoken about it in the context of stopping bad behaviors as yet, and like that's something that that will be like a whole different issue. So no, I
Yeah.
did not run into the problem of the dog not reinforcing any kind of bad behavior, at least at that point in this particular context.
Right.
It was generally, just the dog realizing that, okay, I get double rewards in that particular situation,
Hmm.
teaching new behaviors.
So, so very quick, 3 lines answer from you, how to become a dog trainer. So, Vankta is asking, I am a doctor, unfortunately a human doctor. I am very much interested in dog training. Can you please guide me in short about it?
Absolutely. I think, when you're looking at, whew, so I think I've had a massive journey and like so many different like steps to it. But my personal recommendation would be, and this is something my instructor said, is like when people do a dog training course and there is a batch of, in fact, my own batch as well, even at Starmark, when there is a we were a batch of 32 and only 22 actually graduated. People
Okay.
dropped out, people failed. It was like my husband actually used to say they should have a camera and make this into a reality TV show. But it was intense, and I actually really enjoyed it because it was that intense. Only because like I rather, and I think now especially because I think there are a lot of dog trainers in the industry, and sometimes it is very personal, but it makes my blood boil when I see people doing something wrong with the dog and having half knowledge, where I just feel it's not right. But my recommendation would definitely be do a basic dog psychology and dog training course. We do have, Shirin Merchant who's doing it in India. We have Adnan who's doing it in Delhi. I think those are the two that I personally know that are doing dog training courses. Um, and work in the industry for a little while, and kind of see if this is for you, because a lot of people, as it looks like a lot of fun, and it is. It's the best job in the world, but it's a lot of hard work. A
Yeah,
lot of
yeah, yeah.
hard
It
work.
is.
I
Yeah.
don't think we get to show, because a lot of times, even when I say it, like when I'm actually handling a dog, I don't have my phone on me, and I don't have my camera on me, and I don't have any of that. So actually, the hard work, sadly, I don't. I do now. I've gotten into the habit of having a tripod, but I don't end up recording all of the hard work. But the one thing that I would say is, work in the industry, see if this is actually for you, and if you feel like this is for you, then I would go into, like investing more into it. That's my personal
Yeah.
recommendation and suggestion.
So one question which you, Chetna is asking the same question.
Who is? Oh, is this a question you wanted to ask me as well?
No, I asked you when we were talking
Yes.
before this live,
Yes.
and uh, so yeah, that's when are you planning
Hi,
to?
Chetna. I think that I definitely have gotten passionate about PSA, especially after seeing Will, who was my instructor. I do want to get into it, and I know it's like a more personal kind of way I want to go, because I think it'll just make me a better trainer. But I would definitely love to know a lot more from you. I still feel like I know nothing. I know a lot in theory, but in practicality, I know nothing as yet. And I'm always looking to grow and like learn more. So absolutely, I'm actually excited, but I just need some kind of direction, because I know in Bombay it's not, it's not big as yet. And I think, with everything that's going on, there's a lot on my plate as well, but definitely in the near future.
Cool. Yeah. So Mira says behind the scenes is way beyond than we think. Yes, Mira, you know it
Oh,
all. Yeah.
absolutely. I think Mira deals with a lot of aggression cases as well. Only
Right.
we know what happens behind the scene, and
Yeah.
it's not easy. I know she works.
Yeah.
I know Mira works like crazy hours as well.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
nights when she's at the kennels, and it's it's a lot.
So
It's a lot, but
anything which is
it's extremely rewarding as well.
yeah. So anything to do with, physically present with dogs in this profession is a lot of work. I see Weasel working day in, day out. I mean, 24/7, whether that is petri location, whether that is boarding, whether that is grooming. There is so much, you need to be involved mentally and physically, and you need to be,
Absolutely.
keeping tap on everything. You need to take care of the dog's health. You need to manage the clients at the same time. You need to make them understand what is right, what is wrong. So it takes a lot. So I think, uh,
The funny thing, Rana, is that I generally say that training the dog is the easiest part, and I'm sure any dog trainer out here will agree with me. Training the humans is the hardest part. But the funniest part is that the reality of it is that until you train the humans, you're going to get no results in the dog. So if the humans of the house don't follow the program, your training is absolutely of no use and a complete waste. So, which is why it's so important for us to kind of make these humans understand that until you, because again, remember the rule of consistency. If everybody's not consistent, you're going to have a dog that only listens to the trainer and doesn't listen to you. And then again, you come with the problem of like, oh, my dog only listens to you. That's because the consistency is not everywhere. So,
yeah,
yeah.
this is something of my personal interest. That's why I picked this question, and this is the last one. I swear we are not going
Yes.
to
Yes.
take
Yes.
it. So
No,
Anand
I'm
is,
happy. I love this is my favorite topic. I can talk about dogs for hours. And of course, Pantu also
yeah,
wants to. Hi, baby. Hi, baby.
yeah.
So
So
this is Pantu. For whoever doesn't know her, sorry, I'm just gonna. Hi, baby.
everybody knows
Sit.
Pantu. We have been
Good
getting
girl.
comments.
Good girl.
Hello, Pantu.
Good girl. So this is Pantu.
Right.
She is my indie dog. She's also had a lot of work that I've done on her. She did come to me a little bit nervous, but we've done. She's actually doing amazing. She's going to be 9 in August,
Wow.
and she's going to be
Wow.
9 years old. Yeah, she doesn't look 9. She looks or acts like a 2-year-old or 3-year-old. But yeah.
Okay.
Come here.
So
Yes,
I
good
have
God.
to say
Sit.
not here.
Yeah.
Okay. So Anant is saying that one for the team. He's talking about veterinarians saying that you cannot take the
Yes.
puppy out
Yeah.
till 16
Yeah.
weeks of vaccination, but their
Yeah.
socialization period is this uh,
Yeah.
3 to
Yeah.
16 weeks. So
Yeah.
so we'll miss it
I think the one
fully.
thing I
So
actually, yeah, sorry.
so
Go ahead.
what I have seen, Anant,
I
is
know.
that veterinarians are changing. If you look at this is a little bit primitive when we talk to our veterinarians and we tell them that socialization is very important. So they guide us in a completely different way. I think it was a little bit old time thing. They have started understanding, and then they say that you should not take the puppy to meet dogs which are not vaccinated and to an area from where they can pick up the
Yeah.
infection. So you need to convince your vet to change it a little bit. But I
So
think
I
it is
think the one
completely safe.
blanket,
Yeah,
yeah, but the one blanket rule that I actually tell my clients with a new puppy is like you can take your dog to friends' houses as far as they have a vaccinated dog. That's absolutely fine because they are with their vaccinated mom the whole time as well, even before they get their vaccinations. And I also, because yes, the socialization phase is extremely important, wherein you take your dog, you can take it to your office if there's no other dogs around there. You can take it to spaces that are sterile and there is no unvaccinated dog or unvaccinated animal around, and that's a place that you can take your puppy to. I also do recommend a lot of times to do like loud music in the house, playing like YouTube videos of like different noises around. You can do so much, honestly, with your puppy, even by not taking it out. But I really, really prefer taking my puppies down. Like I'm
yeah,
lucky to have like a little flat area up here, but I do
yeah.
take my dogs
We
out.
also
And in
take
fact,
them out.
I think I agree with you where like vets are changing, but I sometimes just feel like a lot of times I wish they knew or did not give behavior advice.
Yeah,
Sometimes is because sometimes they just like, in fact, I'm going to post about this, but because I had a session this afternoon that I did, which with the aggressive case, and like just their vet gave them the advice that if he growls at you, take a newspaper and smack him. And I was, like things like that really make me angry. Where I just feel like, if you don't know, don't give advice. But
yeah, that's so true.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and
cool.
that
So
really made
I
the problem
have to
worse.
take
But
this
anyway,
one.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, Mitali, I have to take this one. Ritvik is part of my team. He's a big time dog lover. We just hired him a couple of years back because he was a walking
yeah,
talking encyclopedia on dogs. I asked him name of breeds and he then started naming all the dogs in alphabetical orders, which even I didn't knew. I cannot do that, right? Being with dog for so many years,
yeah,
like
yeah.
almost 40. I'm not telling my age, but that's what it is. So Ritvik is asking, does clicker and whistle work in same way or they are different?
So personally, they do not, only because the idea of the clicker is like a quick click to just mark that particular behavior or mark that particular 1.3 second that your dog just did. And I do feel like when I have the clicker in my hand, and of course, even when I give clickers to clients, it does take them a while to kind of get a hang of like clicker, treat pouch, this, that, all of that stuff. Versus a whistle would probably be a much longer, um, kind of longer sound to pinpoint a 1.3 second behavior. So you're literally just using a clicker like click, that's what you did, right? And that's why I'm giving you like what you did at that point of time. Versus a whistle would not work in the exact same way, where it would not pinpoint like that particular instant, you know. Unless I'm sure it can be used where you're just like literally whistling for like that 1.3 seconds, but it would be pretty hard to get that timing absolutely right with a whistle versus a clicker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, no more. We are not taking any more questions, guys.
Okay.
In case you have any questions left, I can see there are a couple of questions around separation anxiety, dog not eating. Ritika, you'll have to log on to our next live session. We are going to do a live session on separation anxiety, on nutrition, etc. In the days to come. Just keep the subscribe to our page, and you will get a notification, and you can join our
Thank
next
you,
live
guys.
session. We usually do it for an hour from 6 to 7 every day. We have over gone 30 minutes just because we had some very interesting questions. And
Thank you, guys. This was
yeah,
really, really, I always love talking about dogs. I can do it all day. But thanks everyone that tuned in. And Pantu is also like, Pantu, have fun. See, everyone have fun. Oh, yes, good girl. Good girl. Yeah, she loves. Like I said, she's extremely food motivated. But thank you for everyone that came, and thank you Rana
yeah.
and DogSpot and everyone for having me here. And I'm really, really happy that I was here on the 100th episode. And
Yeah.
Pantu's happy too, right, Pantu? Yes. Right? Oh yes, yes. She said yes too. Yay. Yes.
All right. Thank
But
you,
thank you,
Mitali.
everybody.
Yeah.
I do keep uploading videos on my Instagram as well. So you guys can go check it out there. I think my Instagram handle is here. That's where I'm most active. And if you guys want to get, a private session, we can work on that. But yeah, at Mitali Salvi. And yeah, thanks again.
So yeah, thank you, Mitali. So everybody, we are going to be doing tomorrow's live at six from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. again. It is going to be a very interesting live. It is going to be about pet birds. It is not about dogs. In case anybody wants to know about taming and training and keeping of pet birds, please do join in tomorrow. Till then, thank you very much. Bye bye, everyone. Thank you, Mitali.
Bye.
Bye, Pantu.
Bye.
See you.